Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today, we are thinking about mental health and healing. Yes, we need to think about that. It's a big one. We all are going through it somehow, and we're all trying to figure out how to heal. So, thankfully, I have Bree here who's going to help us think about this in a way that it will linger in us and change us. So, with that being said, Bree, thank you for coming on my show. When you hear the words mental health and healing, what does that make you think about?
Oof. Well, sorry, my eye is like watering. I'm not crying yet. Um,
It's okay. It's okay to cry here. It's a safe zone.
yes. So when I think about mental health, first I think about the stigma that's around it and how a lot of people don't want to talk about their mental health. I think like in the most recent years, especially since the pandemic, it's become a little bit more open because everyone was going through it in the pandemic. So that's what I think about. And I just think about how it's just such a silent battle, I feel like people don't really talk about it. And even like your healing journey, a lot of people don't talk about it. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I love the fact that you said silent battle. I had to write that down just in case I forgot. But I'm just gonna bring it up because I think silent battle is something that we all are going through. You know what I mean? We all go through this time where we just feel like we're just going through things alone and just
yeah.
we're so isolated that it's like I'm around so many people and can feel so like solitude. And I've been reading that the hardest part about this loneliness of solitude and fighting these battles is the fact that it's an emotion as well as a state of being. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So it's hard to separate the two sometimes, and people get down this spiral, and it's sometimes it's a hard battle to go through. So in your own words, like what are some steps that you think that helped you along the way fight your own silent battles?
Yeah. So one of them was social media is a really triggering place, I feel like sometimes, but when I started to care less about social media, when I realized that I was in the thick of depression and could still post like everything was fine, you know? And I'm like, if I can fool everyone else, then I wonder what these people are actually going through. And online, they have a whole different persona. So I think that
Yeah.
staying off of social media or taking social media with a grain of salt is huge because if you're constantly consuming all this content where everyone looks like their life is so much better than yours, it's going to make you feel even more down on yourself, you know? Um, and then another big thing is just having an outlet. For me, it was writing. So I wrote down everything. And then it's really hard. Like you said, like if you have the emotion, it just manifests on the outside. So like you're having these feelings, all of a sudden you don't want to get out of bed. Sometimes your body gets achy. You actually feel physically sick. It like your hair starts thinning, like your skin looks like crap. Like it really does like
Takes a
which
toll.
yeah, and you're like, oh my God, now I'm ugly. Um, so it does. And I think that making an effort, even if it's something really small, just something really
Yeah.
tiny every day. Um, I don't know if you read the book Atomic Habits. Have you read that book?
No, no, I have not yet.
I recommend it to everyone. So it's like one of my favorite self-development books. And basically he talks
Mm.
about you do really, really small things like every day. So like it could be as small as like I'm this week I'm gonna go on a walk for like 10-minute walk. It doesn't have to be anything big. It should be like micro changes. And then you build upon that. So when you're in the thick of depression, I think that just setting something really small, like if it's just, okay, today I'm gonna get out of bed and I'm gonna make my bed. And then do that for a week and slowly build upon that. I think that that's really helpful.
Absolutely. And it's funny that you brought that up because that's something that I kind of low-key live by because I had a special guest on my show, I believe last year, and she's a behavioral analyst. And
Mhm.
I asked her how does she analyze these people, and that's exactly what she said. She looks at a micro and a bigger scheme to see the small habits, the small behavioral situations that people have, and then the bigger ones so that you can understand why they do these big actions because there's always these little actions that come to par for it. And it literally changed my life, girl. I'm not even lying. Like, ever since then, I'm like, okay, what am I doing on my daily basis? Seems small
Ah,
and irrelevant, but it
mhm.
actually is having a bigger impact. And it was like you said earlier, social media. Oh, it's a distraction. It's a complete distraction
It's a
for me
beautiful
personally.
distraction though.
You know what I mean? It's a double-edged sword. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Because
Mhm.
you can speak to so many people, reach out to so many people, and like be exposed to so many things that you're not usually exposed to in your community. So it's a great thing in the grand aspect of things of technology. However, if your mindset is not keen to understand the
Mhm.
triggers or the long-term effects, if you're not careful of the small ones, it can really have a big impact in your life. Like you said, like all these people seem so happy. I should be happy. Maybe I should live like this. Maybe I should dress like this.
Yeah.
Maybe I should do this. Maybe I drink like this. Maybe I should take a picture of my food and then it'll make me happy. Like
Yeah.
no, it doesn't make you happy. You know,
Yeah.
it's just we've learned to look, compare, and take what we like and put it in ourselves to build ourselves, but we never actually looked within ourselves to determine what we already have and what we can work within ourselves. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
that's one thing for sure I've realized. And I'm like, okay, so when they say you need to reflect back on you, I as a child used to hate that. Oh,
Yeah.
I used to hate that.
Like, what
Like,
does that even mean?
yeah, like why are you telling me to look at myself? I'm with me all the
I'm
time.
I'm
I'm
freaking
done
perfect.
with
What are you
me.
talking
Y-
about? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So then it's like it's not until you really take that moment of silence and this like reflection, like, no, Mitzi, you have issues too. Like, oh, it hits my
But
heart.
that's the
Oh,
hard part, right? Like to look at yourself and be vulnerable with yourself. A lot of people, I saw something and it was like a lot of people when they look in the mirror, they don't look at their eyes in the mirror because it's a
yeah.
very intimate, very vulnerable moment. So they'll look at everything else, but they don't look at their eyes unless you're doing like your eye makeup or something, right? So it's again just like being able to look at yourself and truly see yourself for what you are, whether that's like looking in
Yeah.
your eyes in the mirror or even just like looking at like maybe I'm the villain sometimes, like maybe am I the drama? Like, like sometimes you gotta look at it because sometimes it is you. So
Yes, yes.
yeah,
I think more people need to recognize that we all have toxic traits. Like we can literally all be the victim and the victor all at the same time.
yeah.
But it's like, what are you focusing on? You know what I mean? Like, what
Mhm.
is your real focus on? And I think that comes down to like healing. You know what I mean? The healing portion of mental health is not only recognizing there's an issue, but actually recognizing that you are the only person responsible of taking care of that trauma, that little child. Girl, I literally was watching YouTube reels and the shorts and just going through, and there was a video of this guy in full camo army material walks in with, and then and on the top it says, "This is you protecting your little self." So he full camel walked in, put the headphones on the person as like their little inner child, and stand at the door, waited and held his hollis like to his gun, and was waiting at the door while there was like bickering. I threw my phone on the table and I bawled. I absolutely bawled, and I
Oh,
realized I still have trauma that I still need
yeah,
healing from. And
yeah,
especially from my inner child. And I don't think people realize that. And I didn't realize that. I thought I was like working on it, doing it.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm doing good every day.
yeah.
Yeah. And then it just hit me out of surprise. Like, no, Mitzi, you still have a lot more healing I gotta do.
Well, even that, like healing is not linear. So, like something that you heal from today in a week could have you in shambles. You know what I mean? There could be a new trigger on something that you thought you healed from. And you're like, wait a minute, I thought I was past this. So, I think that's
Yes.
another thing. People are like, oh my God, I thought I was doing so much better. Why is this thing? Like, why am I crying about this? It's not a linear process, though.
It's not. And I'm glad you said that because man, it just makes you realize like you're gonna have to roll with it. You know what I mean? You have to evolve with it and just not be afraid to find out what you're gonna find out within
Yeah.
yourself. You know,
Mhm.
and I think that's the hardest thing. And but I also want to go back into the topic of how people are afraid of, talking about their mental health. Do you think
Mhm.
it also comes down to just finding out that there is something wrong? Like, getting diagnosed, going to a psychiatrist and, you know what I mean, actually talking about your problems and being honest, do you think that's also a big problem that people are having as well?
Honestly, absolutely. For one, people don't want to think that something's wrong with him ever. And especially like I said, with the stigma on mental health, people don't want to go in and find out, oh my gosh, I have this and maybe I need medication. Because there's the stigma, there's also the shame sometimes that goes with
Yeah.
it. So like after I had my daughter, I had severe PTSD because literally everything that could go wrong, like went wrong. Like I had her 2 months early, like flatlined, like it was a big situation. Um,
Yeah.
so and I fought getting medication for the longest time. I'm like, no, I'm I'm not one of those crazy people. Only crazy people take medicine, you know? And like then that's a thing. Like people are like, no, like I'm not like the psycho person on the TV. Like
Yeah. And it's
so
funny because usually when they say that, they say it very crazily too, eyes
yeah.
all boggled
Yeah, I know.
out and
You
like
think I'm
there's a
crazy?
vein popping.
Yeah, you're like, actually, yeah, you look very crazy right now. But
You
so I
know,
think that that's part of
fit
it.
the description
Yeah, you're like,
exactly.
tracks. But I think that's part of it. Like, you don't want, there's like so much shame that's associated with the diagnosis. Like having a diagnosis makes it like real, I think, it like cements it for someone. Or like if they find out that they have to take medicine, again, there's that shame with that. And then I think also just opening up to someone and talking to them, you're like, you keep these things within you for so long. Like childhood trauma, I don't know about you, but I'm the person that like jokes about it. So like I didn't know that I had trauma until I started telling other people and they're like, wait, that's messed up. And I'm like, wait,
Is it? Oh,
yeah,
I thought this is
your
my
family wasn't like
normal.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, like this isn't your normal? No,
Yeah.
people don't do this? No? Oh,
Right.
okay.
You're like, just kidding, that never happened to me.
You're
So
right. Like, yeah, false alarms. No, don't call
yeah.
social services. We're good.
Right. Yeah. So I think that that's part of it though. Like you keep it in and then you talk about it and someone's like, no, actually that's like that's messed up. And you're like, oh wait. So then you don't want to tell a stranger because you're like, this stranger is gonna think I'm like, there's so many times my I saw this meme and it's like, why don't you tell me the truth? And then it says the person, no, because you're gonna have me admitted. And I'm like, that's like facts. No one wants everyone's scared, you know? So I think that that's part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think because of the stigma of what mental facilities were back then, it was basically a prison.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're basically in a prison. So now it's like, is it really any different? We don't
Mhm.
know. We don't know. And from what science and researchers are showing now in this day and age, nothing has really changed besides the fact that they treat you like what, a person versus an
Yeah.
animal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, oh,
They're
okay,
not
you know
doing the
what?
bodies anymore. They're
Yeah,
like,
no,
eh.
right? Not gonna stick something up my nose and squirrel around in
Yeah.
there. Like that's
Yeah.
thank you for that, you know. But it's like, no, that doesn't feed that doesn't heal my fear. That just only
Yeah.
feeds it. You
Yeah.
know, so it's truly scary to just think because I didn't realize it was a problem for me because I was always that person like, oh, love mental health, promote, promote, promote. You know what I mean? Until I had my son, and then I realized, oh, the stigma's real, the taboo's real. It's there
Mhm.
because when he was really young, he just is delayed in speech, delayed in just a lot of things. And compared to my other son, who's literally just 11 months from him, it's a big difference. You can see. So his doctor thinks that he has autism, and I was just like, ooh, that's sunk in my heart. You know what I mean? Because like
Yeah.
I don't really know it, I don't really understand it, but I know the stigma because it's a
And it
diagnosis
hit.
and it's a
That's your
mental health.
baby. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's just like right there that just those two just hit my heart. And then I told my sisters and my family, and they were just like, ooh, that hit their heart too. But then the more that I started to learn about it, I was
Mhm.
like, I told my sister, I was like, I think you have autism. I think
I
we
think we're
all
all
have
on the spectrum a
autism. Like
little bit.
I think
Yeah.
I think we all have some of these
Yeah.
particular tendencies that I never realized was part of this condition that's not really I don't want to say it's not a big deal, but it's not that that extreme have
It's
that
not as
people made
taboo.
it seem. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It should not be a taboo when it's so common.
Yeah.
So common. And it's just people just dismiss it as quirky attributes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because people were just like, oh, that's just Mitzi. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's just a
You're like,
little
just
weird
because they
like
haven't
that.
been diagnosed, they're like, oh, then they're just a little weird, Maybe
Exactly. And
it's a little
you rather be
hyper.
called a little
Yeah.
weird versus like, oh, she has autism.
Yeah. It's so funny because my daughter, so she's 4 and so not a big deal, but her teacher was like, oh, I think she has ADHD. I went in my car and I cried. I was like, oh my God, she's gonna have it so hard at school because she can't pay attention. Oh my God. And then, but also I'm like, why didn't I know that she had ADD? She literally, all she does is like jump off of things all day and speak in gibberish. Like, duh, she has ADHD, but like someone saying it like hit because again, when we were kids, anything that made you slightly different was weird,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Or it was immediately corrected or like It
Mm-hmm.
was like you were forced to repress it. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So you only learned that to not act that way in front of certain people versus resolving the tick or resolving the issue because it
Yeah.
wasn't an issue, it was just who you are, but you just learn how to like mold and
Conform.
work around people. Yeah, conform
Mm.
to other people. And it's crazy. You know what I was thinking? Because let me just ask you, if you could be any type of animal, what animal would you be?
Ooh, a koala.
A koala?
Yeah.
Why is that? Because they're cute and cuddly, but yet vicious?
Yeah, like so like they look like they're so adorable, but they have these like super long claws and they'll like scratch your face off.
I
Or
know
I'd be a kangaroo. No,
the
actually I'd
kangaroo.
100% be a kangaroo. I take it back. I'd be a kangaroo.
You'd be a
They keep their
kangaroo because
babies in their little yeah, pockets and they just go around fighting dogs and kicking people in the face. That's me.
that is so
Who
interesting.
would you be?
That's interesting because I was thinking of I would be an octopus. And I know that's weird, but it's I've been watching a lot of National Geographic. Don't mind me and my weirdness. But
I know.
I was
Love it.
watching a National Geographic and they have this series on octopuses and I've learned that so much about them, how like they evolve and they change and they conform to their environment. They're always watching for their defenses. They pick up, they have great memory with faces. You know what I mean? They're so
They
smart.
can camouflage.
They mimic other animals, girl.
Yeah,
Some of them can
wild.
mimic other animals. They could change their textures. And I feel like everything that I've been through, I low-key have had to evolve. I had to change. I had to mimic. I had to copy. I had to do something out of who I am to conform to this life that I'm living. You know
Right.
what I mean? So that's why I feel like, if anything, I would be an octopus.
You
I'll
know
get
what's
my babies and be happy and be die.
tough? Like, so have you ever heard of Darwinism? Like, is
I've
it,
heard of it, but please explain
yeah,
for the
it's
audience.
like it's adapting to survive. So they say like only the strongest will survive, and that's 100% true. Like, even like back in the day, like, um, you would have to kind of like how animals will like eat their babies that like they don't think will make it kind of thing. But like
Yeah,
people, we 100% are like we evolve to our circumstances, in
absolutely.
order like even if it's just like when we're talking back to childhood trauma, we create these hard exteriors to protect ourselves. So again, that's evolving so we don't have to go through certain things. Our brain will see things that it doesn't like or that it remembers that like and it just immediately tries to protect us from that. So again, with like
Yeah,
how octopuses, they just adapt to their environment and they do whatever they need to do to survive. Like people are the exact same way.
that is very true. That is very true. That's a valid point. Thank you for that. And it made me think about how I know this is maybe random or off topic, but instantly I said, as soon as you said that, the first thought was in my mind is that I read this article about there's this culture somewhere in Asia where they put a nose thing in their nose, and if they're at a very young age, like literally 2 weeks after birth, that they put it right there, and if the child and if the infant does not survive and learn how to adapt to the new breathing and it dies, then they just say, oh well, that it doesn't need to be in our bloodline because then it can't adapt and it can't survive and we can't coddle it its whole life. So they
Yeah.
see it as like, okay, if you die at a young age, well, then that's on you. That's not on me. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So I'm just like, that's interesting
And
because
people will
people
think that
don't think
that's
of that.
harsh. Yeah, people will think that that's harsh, but if you think about it, it's so true in the animal kingdom too. And like people are like we're mammals and like even we may not consciously do that, but the body itself, so like miscarriages, a lot of times the body will get rid of a pregnancy that's not viable, or if they sense that a baby has like some sort of defects, it'll just force a miscarriage because
Yeah.
like and you don't even realize you're doing it. So people are judging like this culture um but they're just consciously doing it, but like it happens all the time in life and the nature and
I
yeah.
think I think that's a valid point. And I think that's what also affects people's mental health is the fact that people are so living on the surface of life and on their skin that they're quick to be offended, quick to
Oh my
blow
gosh.
punches, quick to, you know what I mean? They're just
Yeah.
quick, 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 very impulsive. But they
Hmm.
never allow things to actually settle and they don't ever like allow themselves to just see things for the full picture versus just one, and then they get upset. They said then they claim they have anger issues. Like, no, honey, you don't have anger issues. In reality, you have a problem with just pausing and
Mhm.
allowing the world to react while you just take a pause and breathe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think the power of pause has been something that I've been trying to implement in my life more since I like saw some more videos on it, and I'm just like, wow. You don't realize that until you start implementing it. And I started doing that. Like I would pause before responding to my husband before just like quick snapping, like,
Yeah.
bitch back. Like, no, I would just
Yeah.
pause, take a second, and then he would recognize like, oh shit, something's either
He's
about
like,
to go
let me
down.
back
Like,
off
you know,
before she, yeah.
you know what I mean, real quick. So
Yeah.
it's interesting to think about that. I mean, have you ever seen any other reasons why people are just having a hard time confronting or owning up to who they are and just being authentically who they are?
I mean, honestly, I mean, there's all kinds of things. There's society, and then there's also maybe your family. Maybe it's something
That's a
that's like
valid
your
point.
family wouldn't agree with. And maybe it's something your religion wouldn't agree with. Maybe it's something that you actually don't agree with, but it's who you are. So there's this inner battle going on. I feel like there's so many different factors that it's hard to pinpoint one, but I've I don't want to say never, but I can't off the top of my head think of someone that just freely accepted their mental health and didn't have some kind of like coming to Jesus moment. Like I feel like it's a struggle to get there, like we all deny it. We can,
Oh, okay.
yeah. So like I
Okay.
feel like no one just automatically knows like, well, this is what was preventing me from wanting to get mental health, or you know what I mean? Like I feel like it's not black or white. It can be multiple things that are making you afraid or hesitant to get help.
That's true. That's those are very valid points because people only think of one thing, like, oh, maybe they're just stuck on their family. Okay, but if you remove your family from the scenario and you had the opportunity to still do what you want to do, would you do it? You know what
Mhm.
I mean? Would you still do it? Like, I think that that's the biggest question is having those hard questions. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? I mean, for you personally, when did you realize that you needed to start focusing on your mental health? I know we asked you about healing, but when did
Yeah.
you had to turn the page to mental health?
Um,
If
I
you
would,
don't mind talking about
yeah,
it. I mean, this
I
is just
would
a
say
topic.
I was talking to my mom one time, and so I had my daughter right before COVID, and she was early, so we were locked down before the world went into lockdown because we were in the NICU and like it was a whole thing.
Yeah.
And then COVID happened, and I was in the military at the time, and my daughter's dad was in the military, and I worked medical, so I actually worked more during COVID, whereas everyone else was going home and they were
Yeah.
teleworking. My work day increased. Um, so that on top of being postpartum, on top of having like PTSD and like mm, I want to say like there was this well, why I shouldn't feel this way because we're lucky. We're lucky to be here. So I have no reason to be sad. I have no reason to feel this anxiety because I should just be happy that we survived? And it wasn't until I called my mom and I was crying and she was really concerned and she couldn't come to me because she was military too and they had a
Oh,
stop
sorry.
movement, so she couldn't come where I
Yeah.
was. And I remember I said, well, I won't hurt myself because I need to be here for Araya. And then I thought about that and I'm like, the only thing that's keeping me here is my daughter. Like, I should want to be here. If I'm not at my best, then I'm no good to her.
Yeah.
Like she
Absolutely.
can't be the only reason I stay. I can't just stay
Exactly.
here in an empty shell of a person. Because what does that give her? An empty shell of a person, of a mom?
Exactly. I mean, and I think in media and even in people's personal lives, they can actually pinpoint someone that they know that is basically just an empty shell. Like you
Mhm.
said, I love that description. I'm gonna just take it and run with it if you don't mind. That's gonna be my
Yeah.
new thing. But
Just
I
dead
love
in the eyes. You see
they're
those
empty. There's
people.
nothing. They're literally just existing. That's why the phrase "you're either living nor existing."
Mhm.
Why would I want to just exist here in this world? You know what I mean? And the people all say all the time, I'll die for my children. I'll die for my children." But will you live for them?
Yeah,
Will you
right?
change your actions, change your mindset so you can live and be a better person for them? Because eventually, how you see your relationship with your parents, good or bad, that will determine your relationship with your children,
Right?
good or bad, and that
That
reflects on
generational trauma.
And that reflects on you because it irks me when people don't acknowledge their own actions, but then expect actions that were typical from an older generation now implemented on them, but it's not the same when you never implemented those same values. So now it's like there's a whole disconnection where it's like
Yeah.
there's a field that I can't touch because I don't know. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what I think. But what is your one of your pet peeves, if you don't mind me asking?
Pet peeves. Mm, I don't like people that can't take accountability. I feel like there's a lot of people that have a victim mentality. And like you said, they don't realize the parts that they play in it. Like you can be in one situation, you can be both victim and villain.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that people just focus so hard on, well, you hurt my feelings, or, and I'm like, okay, well, what did you say? Like, how did we get there? What part did you
Yeah.
play? And I feel like there's a lot of people and or like, there's always that person that like they're like, oh, well, I'm this way because I got hurt one time in middle school. And I'm like, how about you grow up? Go to therapy and grow up. And so
Yes,
just
yes,
take accountability.
absolutely.
They
Yeah,
just
you
give reasons for why they act the way they act. Oh, I'm a Scorpio. Like, no, you're a loser. Grow up. Yeah.
exactly like own up to what you are. You know, if you're a drama queen, then say I'm a drama queen and I like the drama and I like to be nosy and I like to ask tons of questions. You know what I mean? Like
And I
just
respect
admit,
you if you say that.
yeah, then I would expect it and then I would use your gifts to my advantage. You know what I mean?
And not tell you anything about me. Like,
Exactly. Oh,
yeah.
yes. Absolutely. Like if I want to know something from someone else, you know what? I'm gonna use you. Like,
Yes.
yo, I need you to go find out, do some dirt. I
Yeah.
got you. Boom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Communicate with me because your gifts could be flaws to somebody else, but it could be an advantage to somebody else too. Or
Yeah.
it could be it's like a double-edged sword. It's
Mhm.
there's good and bad in everybody. You know, you just gotta
Absolutely.
really see it and use it and be
Yeah.
accountable. So yes, those are very valid words. Thank you for that. So
So I have one
time.
and everyone
Mhm.
calls her the crazy friend, right? And she's interesting, but she's the one, if you want to know something, she's like a PI, like private investigator. She can find out. Like if she can't find it, it doesn't exist. So, and like and but she's the crazy friend, but if you want anything found out, you contact her and she will find it
See,
without
that's the thing. She may be the crazy friend, but she has value. You might need some space
fail.
to like rejuvenate your batteries to deal with her, but it's okay. Like sometimes I'm the crazy friend. You know what I mean? Sometimes I realize that, and people have told me that they have to warn people before they introduce me. You know what I mean? They're like, we don't know what you're gonna do. You're either gonna love them or hate them or attack them
Mhm.
or just ignore them. And I'm just like, sorry, but it's for an advantage so that I don't meet people that I know that people don't want me to meet. Like that's okay. That that's a benefit to me at the end of the
Yeah.
day because I don't want people in my boundaries. I don't want people in my space. Like
Yeah.
I'm a loner. I'm a low-key hermit crab. Snap,
I
snap.
know.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like I like my space. I like my solitude. So
Mhm.
it's okay for me. And I think knowing that as well, I'm accountable for that. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
I think and it doesn't hurt out nobody. So it's just like own it,
Yeah.
own your truth and everybody will be okay. Goodness, shake it, woman. Like
Yeah.
so, to start wrapping up the show because time is taking us, unfortunately, what can be some lasting words of wisdom that you can leave us off with?
I think that the greatest gift that you could ever give yourself is to heal yourself because at the end of the day, you play this role of best friend to everyone else, right? You're there for everyone else, but you're the person that you spend the most time with. Like, why would you be ugly to yourself and be a best friend to someone else? So I would
Mhm.
say be a friend to yourself, keep your promises to yourself, don't let yourself down and let yourself heal. So I think that would be
Yes.
the biggest thing.
Exactly, exactly. Have self-compassionate, ladies and gentlemen. Goodness, I was saying that to my mom and she was like, "Why aren't you nice to yourself? Like,
Yeah,
why are you beating yourself up and then expecting me to add on to the beating? And then you get mad at me if I actually do it, or you
right.
get mad at me if I don't do it because you still think that. Like,
Yeah,
no. Like
Like, I don't want to
like
say that because I love you. Like, you shouldn't want to say that about yourself. I'm not going to join you.
yeah, I'm not gonna join the bandwagon.
Yeah.
No, no. There's already enough people in this world that's gonna attack you. So why not just like love on yourself? Why not just give you a hug? Why
Mhm.
not just provide that trust that you've lost in the world, bring it back within yourself. So
Yeah.
it all goes back down to that self-healing within. And I think that's one thing that I'm learning as well as my everyday life
Mhm.
comes on to me because I never know when my time is coming. So every day is a gift. So every day I'm trying to remind myself, like, Mitzi, you could love you. You can be
Mhm.
nice to you. You could take a second and just breathe. You don't have to respond quickly. You don't have to, not everyone's emergency is your
Yeah.
emergency. Not everyone's emergency is your emergency. So it's
Yes.
like if other people don't know how to plan their life or coordinate their lives, that's not your problem. Unless you're a planner and that's your job description to plan and do these things for people
Yeah.
and advocate and all that stuff, then don't do it. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Take a second to do it for
You're
yourself and just
responsible for
breathe.
you. Yeah.
Exactly.
One last thing I wanted to say, another parting word. There's someone I follow, and she says when you wake up in the morning, ask yourself, what do I need today? And she said that's a good way of showing compassion to yourself because sometimes you're like, you know what, I need to hustle today. I need to get stuff done. And sometimes you're like, I need to be gentle with myself. I need some self-care. So like asking yourself, what do I need today?
That's such a valid point. That's it. Oh my God, that's so funny that you said that because yesterday I was getting so overwhelmed and I could tell that my son was sensing the vibe because he was getting overwhelmed too.
Yeah.
So all I knew was just like as soon as I don't know what happened, but it was just like a random moment where I realized like, what's the problem? And I realized I'm moving without doing anything. Like, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? I'm moving too fast without actually doing anything that's worth doing. So
Yeah,
it's
you're
just
just
like,
moving around.
yeah. So it's just like, slow it down. So it's just like, okay. I took a deep breath, I closed my eyes, and I breathed, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna slow it down. And I literally started walking slower. I calmed my
Recenter.
breathing. You know, I was recentering and I handled my son with grace. I grabbed him and he was calm. Literally, that little snot, he was calm after. And I was
I
just like,
think they,
huh.
I swear they sense it. They
They
can
they
sense
do.
tension, especially because you're their mom. They're so connected to you. So even if you're slightly off, they know.
Yeah, absolutely. They know. They know
And they
like, oh,
respond to it.
and then
Yeah.
that's when I have to recheck myself, like, okay, if my son's off, that means I'm off, or there's something wrong. There's always a reason for the action. So I'm just like, okay, let me just reset myself. And usually that's the best thing because when I can't logically think or rationally think of the solution, the best solution at that moment is just to pause, breathe, recenter yourself, have some compassion, be like, you're doing the best you can with the information that you can, with the tools that you were given. All you can do is just the best that you can, put yourself foot forward. Remember, you matter, your actions matter, you're loved because you can produce love and you are abundance of love and go forward. You know,
Yeah,
and that's what I hold on to because man, love really cures my heart because hate likes to sneak in,
it
anger
does.
likes to sneak in, depression, hello, my buddy friend. You
Yeah,
know,
I
like
know, right? It's like, did you forget about me?
we're like, hello, friend,
Yeah,
let's go to
we're
bed and
back.
cuddle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. That's so funny. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, if you guys want to know more about Bree and all that she has to offer the world, I have her lovely website where you can keep on thinking. She has books, she has information so that you can just focus on your mental health and healing in a different way. And that's what we want, right? If you're
Yeah.
listening to this conversation, obviously that's what you want. So, with that being said, always keep thinking, y'all. Bye.